I'm sure most people will agree with me that when GB News came on the scene, it was a breath of fresh air. For all our lives, we'd had the BBC, then channels like Sky News, Channel 4, so on and so on. What many people like us call the mainstream corrupt media. They're the mainstream media that set an agenda and they all go along with it to keep the establishment in power. So GB News looked like Britain's version of Fox News, and along with Talk TV, it finally felt like parties like Reform UK or the right of the Conservatives, the part of the Conservatives which are more like Reform, let's be honest, could have a fair voice. We could talk about things like immigration. We could even debate COVID. We could debate whether we should be spending £30 billion a year, this year £50 billion a year, on so-called going net zero. But I've done a couple of videos and many people commented agreeing that it seems that GB News and Talk TV are becoming more and more establishment. And I'm going to show you a clip today of Richard Tice, the deputy leader of Reform UK, and a lady called Camilla Tominey, who you'll recognise on GB News, and she formerly worked for the LBC. Now, I want you to close your eyes and watch this clip and imagine that you was listening to the LBC or BBC, because it certainly doesn't sound like a GB News interview. Take a look.
A simple question, and I know you're good at answering questions, Mr. Tice. If he's exonerated, is he welcome back in Reform?
Well, the whip has been withdrawn, and we want team players that will unite. I am actually. The whip has been withdrawn, and that should be the assumption. We're driving forwards. We're not holding back. We've got a job to do. We've got hundreds of seats to win in May. We're not going to be distracted by this noise. Okay. And do you know what? I don't think the British people will be either.
Can we talk about Nigel Farage's ego? Has he been drinking too much MAGA Kool-Aid? Is he too close to Donald Trump to be objective? Because his popularity rating has actually dropped, according to YouGov, by 9 points since he didn't back Zelensky and Ukraine. Now, you came into this studio last week and you very much said, I've always been backing Ukraine. I've spoken in the House a number of times about the horrific situation that President Zelensky has had to deal with over the course of the last 3 years. Nigel Farage has been comparatively silent on that issue, and it's cost reform, hasn't it?
I don't think so, because George, a poll
out... You don't think so?
Well, there's a poll out yesterday, Camilla, showing that we've gone up one, and we're 7 points ahead of the Tory.
But he isn't in line with the consensus on Ukraine, is he? Two-thirds of British adults support President Zelensky over President Trump. That includes 66% of Reform voters. He can't claim to be the people's politician if he's against the consensus. And this could be because he's too close to Trump to be objective.
No, I think that I think it's the opposite. I think what we have stood rock solid with Ukraine. We have, as I said on the programme last week, been rock solid behind the challenges that President Zelensky...
Nigel Farage has been rock solid behind Ukraine.
We at Reform... The point is...
Why are you saying that? He hasn't been.
No, look, at the end of the day, Nigel, quite rightly, as have I, have said the ultimate objective has to be a lasting peace with strong, robust security guarantees.
He hasn't been rock solid behind Ukraine, and that's the problem.
I'm sorry, Camilla, that's completely wrong.
You're saying that Nigel Farage has been rock solid behind Ukraine.
We've always said...
when he was praising Putin as a great leader, when he was talking about the Russian bear being poked by the expansion of the European Union and NATO.
Patently not the case. Nigel and I have been rock solid that Putin is the aggressor, he is an evil dictator, and Ukraine has been...
So there you see Camilla putting plenty of loaded questions, saying how Richard's had plenty to say, saying it's her show. She sounds just like the mainstream media. And she's trying this Russia attack on about Reform UK. Richard Tice put his money where his mouth is and actually arranged to send aid out to the Ukrainian people. Nigel Farage says Vladimir Putin was the aggressor, but he points out the simple fact that we've been poking the Russian bear with NATO for far too long. But GB News are trying to get the got you moment to ruin Reform UK. Now, some people are going to say, well, GB News should be a neutral. They should ask everyone these difficult questions. But let's be honest, these aren't just difficult questions. These are questions set to get an answer in order to end somebody's political career or end a political party. So she started off talking about the big story at the moment, Rupert Law, and then when she didn't really get much out of that, she then went on to the Russia. He'd had no business whatsoever in this interview. And don't forget, Nigel Farage is actually the star of GB News. Now, there's still good presenters on GB News, and there's still good presenters on Talk TV. But the question I want to ask today, and I want you to please give me the answer in the comments, is why, because there must be so much good talent out there, normal people who can come on and do these shows, why are they going to mainstream figures who've been from these mainstream corrupt medias like Camilla and like some of the people on Talk TV, like Julie Hartley Brewer on Talk TV, going to these people and ask you, and I want you to answer, do you think that these channels are anti-establishment, they are for the working people, and it's just some rogue elements of it? Or have we been tricked with GB News and Talk TV believing that there was an alternative when really there is no alternative? Now, for what it's worth, this is my view. I think they did start off as the alternative, and fingers crossed, they will always be better than the mainstream. I don't think they'll ever be truly alternative like you get with independent media. But if you look at GB News, it started to get fined during the election campaign. It started to get all these complaints to Ofcom, people calling for it to be axed, articles saying how many times it mentioned the word Islam. And I think these mainstream channels are now putting forward more and more these characters who, let's be honest, they are mainstream. These characters like Julie and Camilla and a couple of others, they really are there trying to catch parties out like Reform UK to get rid of them. They have been put in by plants, in my opinion. And I think they are now caving as TV channels, news organisations, to the establishment, the real powers to be. And they've been told, you get on board or you simply get out. Now, there's method in madness from the establishment to use these parties. So the establishment know people like you and me are not going to be watching the BBC. So the messages through the BBC are falling on deaf ears when it comes to people who are aware about politics that are really happening, the issues that affect each and every one of us. But if there's a channel that we trust, like GB News or Talk TV, and they can get a different narrative going, which seems on this instance, the Russia one is the one that has everybody apparently thinking the same thing when it comes to news organisations, that we, the people who they're meant to represent, have many, many different views about the Russian-Ukraine war. So I think these channels have been got at, and unfortunately, I think that many, many people are going to continue to trust them. I'm going to make a prediction that within the next few months, GB News and Talk TV are going to lose a lot of presenters because they're going to take this hard line against Reform UK. And I don't think many of its presenters will go with this. So I think you'll start seeing behind the scenes arguments and people being axed. And that is if the infighting hasn't harmed Reform UK already enough. But I genuinely don't think it has. I think Reform UK will continue its popularity. I think they'll see a bit of a dip, and then people realise again just how bad the two establishment parties are. Three, if you're going to include the Lib Dems, and Reform UK's popularity will rise back to around about the 30% mark. But let me know what you think in the comment section. GB News, Talk TV, are they becoming more and more establishment? Thank you all for watching. Can you please like, share, and especially subscribe so I can get these videos out to more and more people? I'm an independent one-man band. This is an independent startup channel. My experience is 10 years as an elected independent in local government. I've seen how politics works and how it doesn't represent people. And the aim to this channel is to follow what's going on in the politics, the decision making in our country, and give honest, open opinion on it, and have a debate and see if we can find the truth mingled in with all the BS we see on our television. So thank you all very much indeed for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.